Let's talk about the WNBA. They have made an offer that the players probably best not refuse at this point. It is a sizable offer. It is a step up from what was already a very lucrative offer that was, roughly almost 4 times what they're getting paid right now. Something right around, it was around $1 million a year on a Supermax. Some came out and said it was $850,000.
The WNBA recently released a fresh collective bargaining agreement proposal, and it is distinct from anything the league has ever presented before. Paychecks are skyrocketing, maximum contracts are breaking the 7-figure barrier for the very first time in league history. Caitlin Clark could be earning over $1 million annually. Yet there is a catch that is causing controversy among players. This deal could reshape women's basketball forever. Drop a comment. Do you think the WNBA players should accept this historic raise, or should they hold out for even better terms on revenue sharing? The WNBA just made a move that nobody expected. They presented a new CBA offer that would fundamentally change the financial landscape of women's basketball. This isn't just a small bump in salary, this is a complete transformation. For the first time ever, the maximum salary would exceed $1 million. Let that sink in. Players in the WNBA could earn over $1 million per year. That's never happened before. That's historic. But before everyone starts celebrating, there's a lot more to unpack here. The previous collective bargaining agreement was set to expire on October 31. The league and union agreed to a 30-day extension to November 30 to give themselves more time to negotiate. That gave both sides time to figure out what a new deal could look like. The WNBA apparently used that time to craft an offer they thought would be acceptable to players. According to reports, the new CBA proposal would start with the 2026 season and would include some serious salary increases. For players with 0 to 2 years of experience, the minimum salary would be $220,000. That's already a substantial increase from previous years. For players with 3 or more years of experience, the minimum would rise above $460,000. That's more than quadrupling the previous minimums. These aren't small changes. These are transformative numbers for rank-and-file players who don't make the maximum salary. The maximum salary would exceed $1.1 million per team member. And here's the important part. Multiple players per roster could earn that maximum. This is different from how maximum salaries work in many other sports, where only 1 or 2 players can earn the top tier. In this WNBA proposal, multiple players on the same team could earn over $1 million. That's revolution. That means teams could actually put together championship rosters where multiple stars are compensated at the highest level. Over the course of the CBA's duration, these salary figures would increase, providing consistent raises throughout the agreement. This is how salary progression is supposed to work. Players aren't just getting a one-time increase and then stagnating for years. They're getting annual increases that keep pace with inflation and league growth. That's what responsible labor negotiations produce. The impact on Caitlin Clark specifically would be significant. As a top player in the league, she would be eligible for maximum salary consideration. She could be earning over $1 million annually. That's a level of compensation that would have seemed impossible for a women's basketball player just a few years ago. The fact that she could reach that level shows how much the landscape has shifted. It shows how much her own presence has driven change in the league.
Now officially over $1 million. Now part of this is, and this is going to be interesting because $1 million or over $1 million sound a lot better 6 weeks ago before the emergence of Project B and actual WNBA players signing with Project B for what has already been, it's already been revealed, a minimum of $2 million. And I can tell you right now, Gumake, Alyssa Thomas, and Jonquel Jones got more than $2 million.
But here is where things get complicated. The WNBPA, which is the players' union, has outlined several demands beyond just salary increases. They want charter flights, meaning players would fly on private planes instead of commercial flights, like they currently do. They want better benefit. They want roster size changes. They want a prioritization rule that gives players more control over their schedule and time off. These are important quality of life issues that go beyond just money.
Exciting news just recently about the new offer from the WNBA to the players with a max salary of $1.1 million that goes up each year of the contract, plus a higher league minimum at $220,000. So all really, really good news. Things are trending up in that way. Now, we still have one major problem, at least one major problem. And in all actuality, this is what is stopping the deal from getting done. Right here, it's in black and white. You can see it. This is what is stopping the deal from getting done.
However, the primary concern for the union remains a revenue-sharing model tied to league growth. This is the big one. The union doesn't just want fixed salary increases. They want salaries to grow along with the league's revenue. That makes sense when you think about it. If the league is making more money, shouldn't the players who generate that revenue see a proportional increase in their compensation? That's the fundamental argument. Currently, under the existing agreement, salaries rise by a fixed 3% annually. That's it. No matter how much the league's revenue grows, salaries only increase by 3% per year. The union thinks that's unfair. Players currently receive about 9% of all revenue generated by the league. Compare that to the NBA, where players receive between 49% and 51% of revenue. The gap is enormous. The union argues that women's basketball players should have a similar revenue-sharing percentage as their NBA counterparts. The WNBA's new offer reportedly maintains this fixed-rate system. That means the league is saying yes to historic salary increases, but no to revenue sharing tied to league growth. The league is essentially offering, here's a massive raise, but it's fixed. You get your increase every year, but it's predetermined and doesn't change based on how profitable the league becomes. The union is saying, we want the increase, but we also want a piece of the growing pie. This creates a difficult choice for players. On one hand, the salary increases are genuinely historic. Minimum salaries more than tripling for younger players is massive. Maximums more than quintupling is enormous. These are raises that could change lives and establish real generational wealth for players who are currently earning far less. On the other hand, rejecting the offer in hopes of getting revenue sharing could be risky. What if negotiations drag on? What if the league decides to walk away? The stakes of these negotiations are incredibly high. Without a new CBA in place, the league cannot conduct the expansion draft. The league cannot handle free agency. The league cannot conduct a 2026 WNBA draft. All of those things are critical to the league's functioning. The season cannot proceed normally without a new CBA. Both sides are facing real pressure to come to a deal quickly, or the 2026 season could be delayed or disrupted. Both sides understand that time is running out. The deadline is November 30th. After that, if no agreement is reached, the league could face a work stoppage. Players could strike. The season could be delayed. Neither side wants that outcome, but both sides are using the pressure as leverage in negotiations. The WNBA is essentially saying, we've offered historic raises, so you should be grateful. The union is essentially saying, we deserve more than fixed increases. We deserve to share in league growth. What's interesting about this timing is that it comes shortly after Alyssa Thomas signed with Project B, a Saudi-backed women's league. Project B is offering competitive salaries and is providing lucrative off-season opportunities for WNBA players. Nneka Ogwumike also signed with the league. These high-profile signings signal that there are alternatives to the WNBA. Players have options. That gives them leverage in negotiations. The WNBA knows that if they don't offer competitive compensation, elite players could defect to these new leagues. Project B runs from November 2026 to April 2027, which is basically an entire off-season replacement. Instead of playing overseas for a few months, players could stay in a professional women's league that pays well and provides global exposure. Project B is offering high salaries, equity stakes, and an 11-week global schedule that's attractive to players who want to compete year-round at a high level while earning significant income. Unrivaled is another alternative league that's providing competition for the WNBA. These leagues are signals that the market for women's basketball is growing beyond just the WNBA. Players are recognizing that there are multiple ways to make a living playing professional basketball. That leverage is crucial in CBA negotiation. If players feel like they're not being valued by the WNBA, they can credibly threaten to play in these alternative leagues. The fact that the WNBA is even making this offer shows that they're taking these alternative leagues serious. The league understands that without competitive compensation, they could lose players to Project B, Unrivaled, and other emerging competitions. The offer of historic salaries is partly the WNBA. Responding to this competitive pressure, they're trying to keep their star players happy and committed to the league. From a business perspective, the WNBA's offer makes sense. They're essentially saying, we can't afford to tie salaries to revenue sharing right now, but we can offer these significant fixed increases that will be attractive enough to keep you happy. The union's counter-argument is, the league is profitable and growing, so we deserve to share in that growth proportionally. Both perspectives have merit. The revenue-sharing argument is particularly compelling when you consider the trajectory of women's basketball. Viewership is up, attendance is up, media rights deals are getting better, the league is clearly growing, players like Caitlin Clark are driving that growth. It makes logical sense that they should benefit proportionally from the league's success. The current system, where players only get 9% of revenue, while the NBA gets 50%, seems fundamentally unfair. However, the WNBA's position is also understandable. The league is still not as profitable as the NBA. The infrastructure isn't as developed. The international market isn't as mature. The league might be taking on significant financial risk by locking into revenue sharing that guarantees higher percentages to players. If the league experiences a downturn, they'd be stuck with high player compensation regardless of revenue. That's why they might prefer fixed increase. For Caitlin Clark specifically, this negotiation is interesting because she's at the center of the league's growth story. The WNBA knows that Clark is driving some of the increased viewership and interest. They also know that if she's unhappy with her compensation or the league's direction, she could be a problem. She could become a voice for players demanding revenue sharing. She could potentially push for changes in other ways. The WNBA probably wants to keep Clark happy as a way of maintaining stability. The timing of this offer also matters. It comes at a point where the WNBA is trying to capitalize on the momentum generated by stars like Caitlin Clark, Alyssa Reese, and others who have energized the league. If the WNBA doesn't reach a deal by the deadline, that momentum could stall. The 2026 season could be disrupted. That would be terrible timing for the league, just when they're finally getting mainstream attention and investment. The union has to make a strategic decision. Do they accept this offer and take the historic raises? Do they hold out for revenue sharing and risk a work stoppage? Do they try to negotiate a middle ground where they get some combination of increased salaries and some form of revenue sharing? These are complicated decisions that union leadership has to make with input from players. What makes this particularly complex is that not all players have the same interests. Superstar players like Caitlin Clark might be more interested in maximum salary increases because they already earn well. Veteran players might be interested in minimum salary increases for their peers. Young players might be interested in securing their futures with any raise they can get. The union has to try to serve all these interests simultaneously, which is difficult. The emergence of alternative leagues like Project B also changes the calculus. If the WNBA players reject this offer and negotiations drag on, some players might choose to sign with Project B instead. That would create a brain drain where the WNBA loses some of its top talent to alternative competitions. That would be bad for the league's product and competitiveness. The WNBA knows this, which is why they're probably pushing for a quick resolution. Ultimately, what this negotiation represents is a watershed moment for women's basketball. The WNBA is offering compensation that would have seemed impossible 5 years ago. That's genuine progress. The question is whether players feel that's enough progress, or whether they want to push for even more fundamental changes to how they're compensated. Both sides have legitimate arguments. Both sides are using leverage effectively. The outcome will likely shape professional women's basketball for years to come. The fact that this is happening at all shows how far the league has come. 10 years ago, the WNBA wasn't having these conversations about revenue sharing. Players weren't demanding charter flights. Salaries weren't exceeding $1 million. The league was just trying to survive. Now the conversation has shifted to how to fairly distribute the wealth being generated by a growing business. That's a fundamentally different discussion, and it reflects genuine progress for women's basketball. The WNBA's offer is historic but incomplete. Salary increases are massive, but revenue sharing remains off the table. Caitlin Clark and other players have to decide if this is enough or if they should push for more. If you think players should accept this deal, hit that like button, subscribe for more WNBA coverage. Comment below. What's more important, massive salary increases or revenue sharing guaranteed?